Now, the first thing we start off with is we create a variable here called renderEngine class. And you define a variable by starting with the keyword var and then the variable name. And then you say equals whatever you'd like it to be equal to. In this case, we use an opening brace to indicate that we'd like this to be a JavaScript object. This is the object literal notation for defining an object in JavaScript. From there, we can declare methods and member variables of that object by specifying the name of the member, a colon, and then the value that it's going to take. In this case, we declare the method to have the name drawString. We use a colon, and then we say that this is going to be a function. We use the keyword function to define this, and then we give a list of all of the parameters, and then open the function with an opening brace, similarly to how you would in many other languages. Now, again, we create a variable, name it, and then assign to it the value of gRenderEngine.context. Now, this is going to take the JavaScript object, gRenderEngine, and the dot notation is going to tell us that we want the context member of this object. And we do something similar down here, where we grab the font member of the CTX object and assign it this value here. Now, you notice that we're using addition and strings. Addition is overloaded in JavaScript to also designate string concatenation. Again, similar to a lot of other languages you might have seen. Next, we have an example of an if statement. If statements work essentially the same way that they would in any other language, where you have the keyword if, then in parentheses you specify the predicate that's going to return a Boolean value, either true or false, and then the body of the if statement that executes if that evaluates to true. Now, note that the statement here doesn't have braces around it designating what executes if the if statement evaluates to true. This is similar to some other languages where if there's a single line that you need to evaluate, you don't require those braces. We use this here or there just for readability purposes, so you might see this in the code. Now, for larger if blocks, you can delineate them with an opening brace, and then once they are done, way down here, you close them with another brace. From there, we have a number more examples of declaring and setting variables, and then we come to a for loop. For loops are structured essentially the same way they are in C, where we have an initializer value, then a predicate to evaluate for when the for loop should end, and then an expression to execute at the end of each for loop. And similarly to if blocks, the block of code that you'd like to execute each time the for loop runs is delineated by braces. Although again, if it's a single line, you don't require those braces to be there. Now here we see words n, where n is in square braces. And again, n is the variable that our for loop is looping over. This is an example of accessing a list, where n is the nth element in that list. Now, like most other languages, this is 0 indexed as well, so keep that in mind.